go again. Here we go. Can you hear me now? Oh, at least this time I didn't go as long as last time, right? Yeah, caught me as I'm setting up. I hit the start stream button. Oh, man. But welcome back, yo. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to The Correct Opinion. This is the only live stream that's bold enough to break down space math, intergalactic clone drama, and drop dad jokes that hit harder than Hober Mallow. Tonight, it's all about Foundation. Foundation, we're recapping season 1. We're watching back my season 2 deep dives live with y'all reacting with me in real time. And let's just tease a little bit about what's coming in season 3. And yes, I'm wearing my Stay Out of My Mind tee because you'll see. You'll see. Who else? Now, let's see who we got up in here. I see we've got Jen, the teacher, up in here. Appreciate you coming through, Jen. Happy Monday. Markeisha, thank you so much for helping me out. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy to see you. But yeah, tonight we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about Foundation Season 1. The Machine Wars, the Cleonic Dynasty, psychohistory, the Prime Radiant, and how this whole beautiful space mess got started. And yes, I'm packing this with laughs, deep dives, and a few shameless plugs, right? I got to pay for that $45 a month now StreamYard subscription. Somehow. But yeah, we're going to be getting up into that Foundation chat tonight. Thank you so much, Markeisha. Appreciate you. I hope you're a fan of Foundation, because this show right here, like, you know, a lot of people they're into Star Wars or they're into Dune. And don't get me wrong, I like the stuff too, right? I like Star Wars, I like Dune, but there's something different about Foundation, at least to me. And then I found out that this story, written by Isaac Asimov, predates some of my favorite sci-fis. It predates Star Wars, it predates Star Trek, it predates Dune. We have Foundation. And while watching Foundation, one of the coolest moments I had was when I had the realization that those other things that I like actually took inspiration from this. And this wonderful story was created by the writer and creator Isaac Asimov, and then adapted for television on the Apple TV series by David S. Goyer, who some of you guys may remember as the writer of the Dark Knight trilogy, along with a lot of other cool sci-fi stories. I think he also wrote the Blade trilogy as well. So I'm really into this story, right? So it's like humanity is spread out across the galaxy like a bad group text. And at the center, there's the Galactic Empire, right? It's ruled by a single dude named, matter of fact, tell you what, let's get into it, right? Because I'm starting to get into it. Let's just get ahead and let's get into it. This is going to be our Foundation Season 1, at least recap for everybody who is new to Foundation, or if you're like me and you're excited for Season 3 and it's just been a while, right? It's just been a while. It's just, man, kind of foggy. Got to clear off the cobwebs there. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in Foundation Season 1. And then what I want to do is actually revisit my Foundation Season 2 deep dives, because I was actually watching them, right? Like, I was trying to clear off the cobwebs myself, watched my own videos to get ready for Season 3. And there were a couple things that, now that I've finished Season 2 and I've seen some of Season 3, I can look back at Season 2 with a new set of eyes and actually recontextualize a lot of this stuff. So hopefully you guys might be able to go through this with me and revisit Season 2 now that we know all of the development. So this is going to be where I really, really get into enjoying this show. Not that I won't enjoy season 1, but I really love season 2. So let's go ahead. Let me get into it. Oh, there we go. It did it. All right. Supposed to put me here. There we go. And then I can not invite. Share screen. Window. Yeah, let's put it here so I can turn with you guys. I'm always at an angle. All right. And we've got it. Let's cook. Let's go. And we got the chat in the screen. Let's go. Now we're cooking. Now, Foundation. This is a sci-fi show unlike any other, but if you have to start to wrap your head around something to build as a, for lack of better words, foundation into how to enter this show, think of it kind of like Star Wars, but there's no Jedi, right? But there are some other, but just go from there. That's your start. Star Wars, people inhabited and colonized multiple planets all throughout the galaxies, and there's no Jedi. Let's go from there. In this show, in Foundation, humanity, like I said, they're spread across the galaxy like a bad group text. And at the center, this galactic empire ruled by a single dude named Cleon the First. Now, Cleon the First began his reign as emperor of the Galactic Empire around 11,908 E8 GE. That's a galactic era time for anyone who's counting. And his reign went like others before him until Cleon decided, you know what, trusting people's for suckers. And instead of heirs, my man invented the genetic dynasty. Yep, a genetic dynasty. My guy is out here cloning himself. My guy is out here cloning himself again and again and again and again. 3 versions always exist at once. Always 3. Brother Dawn, this little dude over here, that's the Emperor in training. Now, we've seen this Brother Dawn at various stages at adolescence throughout the show. In fact, we've met several Brother Dawns throughout the series, and I've been thinking about doing a video about going through them all. Actually, no. Not only all the Brother Dawns. Maybe I'll do a video of all the Cleons we've seen, because there's a lot of them. But this little Brother Dawn here, I'm a little pick me, and I'm not feel like Rome from side. Typically, he wears this title of Dawn until he's 29. Brother Day, the current emperor, bad man. Brother Day, him the emperor and not prime. Him rule like everything him own. Him proud of it true, full of imperial pride. But that pride starts sinking when he feel himself get empty. Him with full of him own self-arrogance. But deep down, he already realized, say him no invincible. Brother Dust, the retired emperor, the wise, the elegant, the grandpa with a drink in his hand, a true elder of the dynasty. Him a step down from the throne, but him still a full of principles and fire. Me see, him not soft like they, him own way of rule calm but firm. When one dust dies, a new dawn is decanted. It's like royal succession on a conveyor belt. Their home, Trantor. It's a planet-sized city so deep, you got to project fake skies underground so folks don't lose their minds. Now, all my Silo fans, y'all know what I'm talking about, right? The fake skies, everything's dark, people's living layers, different floors, the way that it affects the society of it all. That's Trantor, except the whole planet is a city. And there's layers of city going down several stories to the point where every story has its own fake sky. Every story going closer to the planet's core has its own sky. You so far from the top, you don't even know where the real sky is. Demoiselle, she's Empire's secret weapon. A cold-blooded, warm, smiling robot advisor who's actually the galaxy's ultimate insurance policy. She's over 18,000 years old, and her history is shrouded in mystery. She's served every Cleon that's ruled, including Cleon the First, but I have my suspicions about her. More on her later. Enter Harry Seldon, right? Seldon's not just your regular old math professor. He's the godfather of psychohistory, and that's a mind-blowing science that predicts the future of entire civilizations using math. Sounds fake? Oh, it's real. Scary real. His invention, the prime radiant. It's like a math lightsaber, right? It visually maps out the destiny of humanity using the science. And spoiler alert, it's not looking good for humanity. Seldon predicts the fall of the empire and 30,000 years of chaos. But he's got a hack. Create a foundation, a backup plan to shorten the Dark Age to just 1,000 years if they can preserve knowledge. Then maybe humanity won't screw itself beyond repair. Meanwhile, on the flooded backwater planet Synax, we meet Gail Dornick, right? Gail is a math prodigy in a world that burns nerds alive. Like, this is a planet that has completely disavowed and rejected all areas of STEM. Science, technology, math, environment, any of that, any intellectual way of approaching the world outside of religion is not only rejected, they are burned alive. For all my Last of Us fans, think of the Seraphs. For all my, I don't know, just think like, I won't say they're completely like barbaric or anything like that. They're not like that, but they are a group of people who are wildly into their religious beliefs. I won't call them zealots. They're just extremely religious to the point that they completely reject it among their people. Harry recruits her not just for her brains, but because she can feel the future. Yeah, okay, well, maybe there is a math Jedi. She arrives on Trantor, solves the Abraxas conjecture, and immediately gets wrapped up in Harry's plan. Gotcha. She thought she was moving on up, but instead she mixed up with math felons and she ended up with some warrants. Right when things couldn't get any worse, boom, the Star Bridge collapses. Billions of people get murdered. Billions with a B. Billions. The Empire blames it on two rebel kingdoms, Anacreon and Thespis. Harry's exile plan works like a charm. Rather than executing him and creating a martyr, Brother Day ships Harry, Gale, and a bunch of nerds to Terminus, a backwater planet, to build the foundation quietly. All right, now now that I got some of y'all's attention, quick pit stop. Look, if you're loving this wild galaxy, check out my exclusive Foundation theme merch in the bottom. Cloaks not included, but you'll look fly enough to join the Vault crew. I just want to put that out there. Anyway, mid-journey, Harry catches a knife to the gut, courtesy of his adopted son, Rage. Plot twist. Harry gets murked. The creator of psychohistory gets murked. And this doesn't happen like, season finale. This happens at early on in the show, like episode 3. This was one of the wildest moments of season 1 because nobody could have predicted just what direction this show would go. And that's one of the best things that I enjoy about this show. It's almost completely unpredictable. However, it finds a way to make everything circle back in the end and make sense. You just have to think differently. And like I said, plot twist, because Harry wanted this. His death was staged to turn him into a legend. Rage, he launches Gale into space cryosleep to protect her and shoots her out and protects her while he's executed. Dang. Harry's adopted son planned for him to murk Harry, but the plan originally was for Rach to go into this cryosleep and get ejected, and for Gale to stay behind and enter cryosleep. But for whatever reason, he decided to change the plan. He just wanted to see Gale survive. Meanwhile, it's revealed that Harry's got bigger plans. Not just one foundation, 2. The first foundation to preserve knowledge. The second one, the secret one, that one's to preserve math and psychohistory itself. Yeah, trust issues are confirmed. As Gale floats through the void, she realizes she's not just incredibly smart, right? Because Tony Stark intelligence isn't just enough, right? She's also special. She starts to notice that she has mental powers, and there's a hint that there are more people like her called Mentalics. Now, this sets up the future fight against threats psychohistory can't predict, like powerful individuals, namely, the Mentalics, the Mule. Now, back on Terminus, Salvor Hardin, now she is a local warden and a low-key badass. Like, she's really, really cool. She's like that. You know how like we have those characters that's just really excels at stuff in shows, like really good with rifles or really good athletically, things like that. This is Salvor. She is her. She starts noticing that the vault, a weird alien structure, gives everyone a migraine except her. She also notices that Anacreon and Thespis survivors are getting real rowdy. These are survivors from that terrible event that ended up coming to this planet with them. It turns out also that the vault houses a copy of Harry's consciousness, not his ghost, not a hologram. This is something new. Salver and her squad eventually uncover Harry's real plan. Unite the three outer reach groups, Anacreon, Thespis, and the Foundation. Build military strength quietly. 3, fake a stellar explosion to hide from the Empire's radar. So Harry, who never really wanted to get, taken out by Empire, who actually wanted to go to this planet to found Foundation, actually wanted to be sent here with Empire's tools and resources to begin, so that he can build in secret an army with a union of allies, far from the Empire's reach, far from their view. Harry was thinking 3 steps ahead. Now, you already saw it. So before we jump back in, if you're vibing with the deep dives, theories, and savage breakdowns, join me and Bizarro me. Join the channel memberships, get early access to videos, exclusive member-only posts, private live streams, plus insider sci-fi giveaways, plus more. Click join next to subscribe. Let's grow this geek empire together. Thank you. Anyway, meanwhile on Trantor, Brother Dawn grows up different, colorblind, emotional, human. Brother Day struggles with religion and self-doubt. Brother Dusk suspects corruption. It turns out that the Cleonic DNA has been tampered with. The clones aren't perfect anymore. They're evolving. But evolution isn't on the Empire's agenda. Demerzel, forever loyal to the Empire. Read the concept, not the man. Murks Brother Dawn to protect the illusion of perfection. She murks Brother Dawn. She murks one of the leaders of all of Empire to protect the illusion. She identifies that this Brother Day, this Dawn, has a defect. He's colorblind. He's emotional. He's not acting like a Cleon. Rather than let this be noticed, she murks him. So we got to talk about Demerzel. If you thought Demerzel was just an android butler, think again. Turns out she survived the machine wars centuries ago. She's survived the machine wars centuries ago. So think about this. We're 17 Cleons in. This is Cleon the 17th. Even if all of them lived for 100 years old. She survived. No, let me put it this way. She is over 18,000 years old. Her life experience predates the Cleonic dynasty by so much. The Cleonic dynasty is just a small fraction of her lifespan. All that knowledge, immediately accessible, mind you, right? We've seen those movies like Limitless and all that. You take a pill, you have access to all your memories. She has 18,000 years of that. And she's secretly traumatized. She's been forced to obey the dynasty. But the cracks are showing. The cracks are showing. By the end of season 1, Demerzel is barely holding it together. And so is the Empire. Then there's the final twists. Salvor learns that Gale is kind of her mom. She's Gale Dornick's daughter, born through a wild, frozen embryo sci-fi trick. She is Gale's daughter. And she's older than her. So let me explain how this happened, right? Gale was in cryosleep. She finally wakes up after 138 years. She slept for 138 years when Raish ejected her into space in cryosleep. Landed back on her planet, Synax, only to find Salvor crash landed on her planet too. So 138 years have passed since. They reunite with the Prime Radiant in hand, mother and daughter, seers of the future, holders of humanity's fate. And that's pretty much Foundation Season 1. That's it, compressed harder than the space-time around the Dark Star. The Empire is rotting from within. The Foundation is growing strong in the shadows. Math is destiny, but emotions might break the equation. Now, do me a favor. If you're watching this on the recap, if you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, flex that subscribe button, join the memberships, and check out the merch and more. We're getting started and preparing for season 3. And season 2, well, listen, season 2, it's pure chaos in the making. Blessed be the plan. Anyway, like I said, that's my Foundation Season 1. I hope you enjoyed that breakdown. What are y'all saying in the comments? Let me see what y'all saying in the comments. Because I'm as much as like I kind of preface it all the time. Season 1 was fine. It was cool, right? It was a okay show. Had a lot of room for improvement. But for overall, it was fine. Season 2 took all of the feedback and applied it in all the right ways. And then just said, you know what? Let's just pour some more gas on that. And they started to cook. Season 2 it's really good. But what are y'all saying? Foundation, yes. I'm getting a 4 pints and a recap of show vibes. Like you in the pub telling us all this, right? Like, yo, listen. I needed to tell you about this show because this is going to be the show that I'm going to be covering in deep dives for pretty much the summer, right? Like beginning July, I think July 11th, they're going to drop the season and it's going to be released all the way throughout until September. So if you're not caught up on Foundation, I strongly recommend you get caught up on Foundation. Take the time. Apple TV, You've heard people say it. Sometimes they got hits. You heard them cooking with Severance. You heard them cooking with, For All Mankind. You heard them cooking with all these other shows on Apple. I'm telling you, Foundation is their crown jewel. You want to get on this? I'm going to be covering it. Let's go. But for the next part, real quick, I do gotta plug this because I love my shirt right here. I love my shirt right here. And what you probably didn't notice is that this is my limited edition Wave 1 Foundation merch shirt. I'm only going to be selling this one up until the release of season 3, and then this one is going to be gone. I'm going to have some stay out of my mind Foundation merch. I actually got some other things up there too. One of my favorite things that I'm getting already right now is this mug that they made a cool mock-up for me of my design, and I'm gonna get that one. It's like keeping sane, counting prime numbers. I'll show that in a little bit, but I'm queuing up the Foundation season 2 episode 1 video for us because I want to start going through that video next. I'm actually going to play my own recap of the video. This way we can actually pause and dissect certain moments from it. And talk about it from the perspective of knowing how season 2 ended. Because for those of you who watched season 2 and then saw the way it ended and the way the storytelling just worked in that mind-bending way, it really recontextualizes some of the things that we see early in the season. Because this is one of those shows that does this thing. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen season 2, I'm going to spoil all of it. I'm going to be talking about the finale as we're going through season 1, episode 1. I'm going to be talking about everything. So if you want to watch recaps where we don't talk about the later episodes, or if you're just now watching Foundation, you can watch my original recaps first, where I go through the series as it's released and talk about revelations as they're released. But this is going to be a reviewing of season 2, and we're going to talk about it knowing everything that's coming. All right, so I'm going to warn you about that from now. What's going on? Who else we got up in here? Michael Lamont, appreciate you. Smash that like button. Listen, if you're new here, if you're just checking us out for the first time, please do me a favor. Please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. It still helps channels like mine in 2025 to reach that next level. Some of y'all have been rocking with me for a while from season 2, from the beginning. I think I had like 1,500 subscribers. We're almost at 15,000. Thank you all. Thank you all for helping making this possible. Thank you all for checking this out at every time I go live. Thank you for watching all the videos. Thank you for your engagement. No, forget all that. Thank you for being a friend, yo. Because honestly, this connection that we have, when I see y'all online, Asensio Cruz, when I see you liking my posts on X, Twitter, when I see Gothic Chick following me from stream to stream, when she's starting to follow other channels, I really appreciate it. I really feel a bond with y'all. Y'all like friends. Y'all like family. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But yeah, let's get into this season 2, episode 1 deep dive and recap. Now, I can't get copyright strike for my own video, right? Right? Someone? All right, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna find out. What's going on, Fernando? Appreciate you coming through. Hey, I appreciate you. Don't worry about it. Don't be sorry. I mean, you did kind of miss the season 1 recap. I just gave a live, cool recap of Foundation season 1. We're about to go into Foundation season 2. If you need to, rewind, If you're new to Foundation, that's your chance to hop in. If you're already a veteran of Foundation, you've seen seasons 1 and 2, you really love season 2, you were here at the right time. Now is the main event. Now is when things pick up. Now is when we get into the good stuff. Let me go ahead and start this show because I'm getting too hyped, right? I'm getting way too hyped over here. Let me go ahead. Man, that's me. Hold on. Let me put this up on the screen because y'all need to see what I'm saying. Look at that handsome man. Look at that handsome man. Goatee ain't grow that much. Still kind of look the same. Don't really age at all. Hat's kind of cool. Switch to a new hat. All right. Let's see what he's got to say. But yeah, I'm going to go through my own video, play it back, and we're going to go into Foundation Season 2. I'm sorry if it's a little cringe from now, right? This was like, I've gotten better since then, right? Like I've improved the setup since then. So forgive me, y'all. Let's go.
The Future Show, Foundation. I'm your host, Anthony, and
what's the sound? Oh, is it me? Oh, yeah, it's me. You guys
I will do my best to be your guide in this far-out show as we're picking up where Season 1 ended, with the Cleon dynasty in disarray. Harry somehow dead but alive, and mother and daughter Gale and Salvor meeting for the first time. This episode is titled In Selden's Shadow, which is a very fitting title considering that everything that has occurred on this show in the last 100 plus years is a result of the machinations of the mathematician Harry Seldon.
That's right.
This is a great way to highlight the importance of Harry, even hundreds of years after his death, but also as a metaphor for how secretive he was when working on his plans for the future, as our characters try to unravel all of his secrets and also ensure the future of mankind despite the overwhelming odds ahead of them. But first, do me a favor, if you're new here, please consider giving this channel a like and subscribe to keep up with our weekly Foundation analyses and breakdowns, and enable notifications so you're able to watch these videos right after they publish in order to work with us to try to figure out the mystery of Foundation. This episode opens with Harry Seldon monologuing to himself in black and white, which is an interesting moment and an interesting visual in which to the death of Brother Dawn of the Cleonic Empire, whom we learn was an altered clone with a number of differences between him and his brothers. One of his differences was the fact that he was an imperfect clone that was colorblind. Harry is talking to himself out loud, seemingly about what he perceives as his failures regarding his great plan. Something interesting is that he mentions how if he only shared his great plan with others, that maybe they could have helped him. And he yells, "You saw what happened to me on the Raven." Harry then says something is happening before he seemingly is dragged away against his will as we hear that familiar voice of Gale introducing us to this week's episode.
Just real quick, I just wanted to pause it right there real quick because I think it's really important to remember, right? Like we see this Harry just out there. And at first we didn't know who he was. We didn't realize what was going on because we had already seen Harry. He was at the end of season 1. He had met all those people from the first Foundation. We had seen him. But who is this other Harry? This is the second Harry that I started to call Harry White. And one of the things that had to be really processed was that Gale was in cryo sleep for 138 years, right? So season 1 ends with a time skip of 138 years, and season 2 picks up 138 years after season 1 ends. And 138 years, that time has passed. What we were seeing with Harry in black and white was his consciousness awake for 138 years straight. Gale slept through it. And that was something that allowed her to keep her sanity. However, Harry, this Harry, He was conscious for 138 years straight without sleep. I just wanted to point that out.
We then switch to Gail and Salvor making introductions to each other, with Gail learning that the embryo that she donated grew to become the woman before her.
Don't pay anything to fix your roof. New York City homeowners can get a free roof while paying $0 out of pocket.
Rightfully freaks Gail all the way out, with Salvor telling her that she's likely even older than her mother at this point. As they exchange information about Salvor's family and how she knew that she was different, they agree to work together, with Salvor agreeing to call her Gail. Salvor then asks Gail to tell her about herself, her father, her scars, and more, with Gail telling her the history about the first foundation and the Empire. We then switch to Brother Day, aka Empire, having sex with Demerzel? This is a very interesting turn of events, considering that the last time we saw Brother Day, he was not too happy with Demerzel's actions and her decision to kill Brother Dawn. But something important to consider is that this is a brand new Brother Day than the one we met in Season 1, as 138 years have passed since that time. We don't even get a chance to catch our breath over this new couple, as someone sneaks into Cleon's chambers while they're being intimate and attempts to assassinate the Emperor. Cleon is able to catch a glimpse of someone sneaking in his room right on time when Demerzel urges him to open his eyes. As he does with a little position switch, he puts Demerzel on top, right as the assassin attempts to take out Cleon with the sword and chops off a piece of Demerzel's head instead. Now, real quick, it is very interesting that Demerzel was telling Cleon to open his eyes at that exact moment. I don't know if it's just a coincidence in the writing just yet, but the timing does feel very sus. Like, was she warning him? Anyway.
Okay, so now knowing, see, at the time, I had no idea. But now looking back at it, it's freaking spot on. Because we know now that Demerzel is actually the person orchestrating the assassination attempt, right? Demerzel is the one that set up this whole scene. She wasn't really trying to take Cleon out. However, she was trying to scare the life out of him in order to manipulate things moving forward based off of the plans that he started to create for himself. But yeah, it was like a really cool moment that I had sitting here watching this again, because those little things, those little moments, she's like, open your eyes. And I'm like, why did they write it like that? It's because when we rewatch it, we could catch it. Love this stuff. David Goyer, boy.
Cleon then gets a moment to show up just how capable he is at fighting naked when he throws Demerzel's entire robotic body at his would-be assassin and begins defending himself and fighting back. Cleon shows the man that he's got these hands and he can handle himself when a second assassin walks in with a rifle. Cleon is ever confident and even boasts a bit about his protective aura, when the assassin brings that F around and find out energy and blasts Cleon right in the pompous shoulder, teaching Cleon a valuable lesson that he too can be touched. Cleon continues to fight back, but you can see that my man isn't as cocky as he was a few moments ago. The fight goes back and forth for a bit, with Cleon doing his best to not die, but he gets sliced across the chest with a blade that brings Cleon to his knees. If not for the timely intervention of Demerzel right when the assassin was going to finish the job, the Cleonic Empire might have had a bigger problem. But luckily, Demerzel is able to kill the assassin, with Demerzel taking Cleon to be healed. Now, this scene is interesting as Demerzel is rushing to save Cleon from certain death, but she's also walking around with half a robotic head. And wasn't that being a robot thing supposed to be a secret? I might have missed or forgot something because, season 1 was a while ago, but I thought this was still a secret. Anyway, we have no idea who attempted the assassination, and I can't wait to see what your theories are in the comments.
So, again, the writing, the foreshadowing, that moment with Demerzel just in the nick of time saving Cleon. Like I said, again, that wasn't by accident. That was completely by design. She knew exactly what she was doing. That was 100% intentional. The other part with her walking around to save Cleon, to get him some medical attention, but walking around with half a head. I don't know if she knew she was going to lose her head. I don't know if she planned for that part, but she did know that the Empire has technology to erase people's memories. And that's going to be something that turns into a big plot point moving forward. But we started to see the breadcrumbs of that, just sprinkled throughout the first episode. That's, they're just planting these seeds that are going to grow. I get so excited. I'm sorry, y'all. Let's get back into it.
We then switch back to Harry, who is still in some unknown dark location talking to himself, trying to get a sense of where he is and what's going on. He's not having much luck when he just yells and screams in frustration when his mind seemingly wanders to a childhood memory of himself looking at his shadow while at home with his mother and father. This moment is interesting as Harry is folding paper origami style, but is fascinated with the shadows. His mom seems encouraging of Harry's imagination as he looks at his 3D paper object that has a 2D shadow. But his father seems a little bit more disapproving as he slaps the taste out of Harry for ripping a page out of that book that he bought with his hard-earned money. Harry then realizes, based on...
So, hold on. I didn't notice this before. Later on in the season, there's a moment where Bel Rios and his husband are visiting a spy for the Empire on this planet. And when he has books, Belle and Glaywin like lose their minds. They're like, oh my God, is that paper? Is that a book? Like all the technology they have in their world, but books blow their minds. So when Harry ripped a page out of his father's book, I now understand the exponential value of what just happened. Think of it like this for all my comic book fans. He just ripped the cover off of Spider-Man Amazing Fantasy number 15. He just ripped the page out. Just put a math formula on the back. Rip. Here you go, Dad. Here's your comic. Mother, 5 across. Now I understand. I used to think his dad was just mean. No, Harry deserved that. Thank you. I stand by that take. But yeah, I wanted to just point out because we learn about books later in the season and he's planting so many different seeds here, obviously with young Harry mapping out what he's going to use later with the animals, but also with books.
On his memory, that he is actually within a 4-dimensional space, and that realization allows him to travel within his environment with a lot less restriction than he had before. Harry begins walking around and exploring this big empty space when he notices the presence of someone else in the space with him. Harry then sees that the person who is approaching him is his long-dead life mate, Yana. Harry cries at the sight of his long-lost love and expresses how much he's missed her. He then explains how the galaxy is breaking and something is breaking the future and how he needs to fix it.
Got it. Pay the bills, even me.
Harry has...
So yeah, let's pause real quick. Yana. Now, that was really cool because I don't think we saw Yana in season 1, but we get to see her in season 2. And I love how season 2 really starts to build on the backstory of Harry the way that season 1 built on this backstory of Gale. We start seeing young Harry. We start seeing him at different stages of life. And we start filling in his upbringing to understand a little bit about the way he operates as an adult. So that little moment was also really cool. Just wanted to point that
she's real and refers to her as
and his wife. So meeting his wife, and we call her his life mate, but it's really the equivalent of a wife. I don't know, this man should have just married her. But basically his wife, Yana, who we're going to see later on because she's one of the key architects of the Prime Radiant.
Figment of his imagination when she states that she's real. Yana then starts stating some formulas, with Harry realizing that this person in front of him is not the true Yana. She then challenges Harry to figure out who she really is. We then switch back to Gale, who seems to wake from some sort of dream, but when she wakes up, she's not able to find Salvor. She panics a little and dives into the water to look for her when she sees Salvor's boat returning. They reunite with Salvor explaining that she just went fishing. They then begin talking with Gale explaining that she sometimes has dreams about the future, with Salvor telling her that she has dreams about the past. And she tries to use this as a moment to find a commonality with her mom. Gale dismisses it and says it's not the same thing, when Salvor asks Gale why she hasn't activated the Prime Radiant yet. Gale just flat out lies and says that she doesn't have the right tools. And Salvor lets Gale know that she has instincts that let her know when someone is lying, and she calls Gale out for being dishonest. We then switch to a shot of Terminus with a wonderful voiceover from Gale talking about how things are getting dire everywhere, with Empire thrashing like a drowning man. We then see a man referred to as Warden, and we hear a weird siren alarm, and we're on Terminus. And we learn that nobody has heard this alarm go off in 138 years. Yeah, this is the first Foundation, now 138 years after we last saw them, with a new generation of people. We figure out that the alarm is a warning that the vault that contains Harry Seldon's other consciousness seems to be reopening. Yeah, his other consciousness. We'll come back to this. The people of the Foundation start gathering around the vault and discussing what the alarm might mean, and the return of Harry Seldon. They theorize that the return of Harry could be a sign that we might be getting closer to the time when they'll go to war with the Empire. We then switch back to Harry Seldon, the other Harry Seldon, as he's speaking to the
So, I'm starting to think about this a little bit more, and I'm going to probably pause and ask y'all if you have, for those of you who have seen season 2, to help me out with this. But the show is giving us non-linear storytelling. So, you know what? Never mind. Answered my own question.
Person impersonating his wife. Harry begins trying to figure out who she really is, and thinks back to the things that his tormentor, Gale, has mentioned to him in the past, in order to deduce that the person who he's speaking to him is speaking in the same cadence of a poet-mathematician named Callier. After deducing more details about his situation, Harry is able to determine that he's trapped within the Prime Radiant. And we zoom out to see it's true, with Gale holding the Prime Radiant in her hands. We then switch back to Gale and Salvor discussing how Gale trapped Harry inside the Prime Radiant, which confuses the hell out of Salvor because, as far as she knew, she left Harry back on Terminus in the vault. It's at this moment that we learn that there are now 2 Harry Seldons because he's made multiple copies of his consciousness. This deeply disturbs Gale, and she explains to Salvor that Harry can't be trusted as he sacrifices everyone for his plan. And yeah, she's clearly still salty about losing her lover and Salvor's father, Rach, to Harry's plan. Salvor.
Now, I know that this was wildly confusing at first about the fact that there were 2 Harrys. And it was something that wasn't really immediately clear the first time watching episode 1. But as you go throughout the season and then go back to episode 1, it makes a lot more sense. The first Harry that we see that's in the vault is the Harry who was stabbed on the spaceship 138 years ago. That's the Harry that is in the vault. However, he made a backup of his mind, and the backup of his mind is also in the Prime Radiant. So essentially, I would say in one sense or the other, Harry Seldon himself did expire. However, Harry, the character in this show, has now been divided into 2 equally operating Harry Seldon's with potentially competing motives based off of one major flaw in the character that is almost like an elephant in the room to everybody who knows him, and that's his ego. He always thinks that he's the smartest person in the room. He has all the right answers. So what does one Harry do when he realizes he's being manipulated by another? And that's something that we get into a little bit later in the show. But I love how this is planted early on and then explodes later.
Counters Gale and says that she's just more so afraid of Harry's plan rather than Harry himself, and pleads with Gale that they've been asleep for 138 years and they don't know the state of the galaxy, but they need to find out firsthand. Gale seems to have agreed as we next see her showing Salvor how to activate the Prime Radiant. Gale gets a huge look of worry on her face and shows Salvor that although Salvor helped solve the first crisis, that there's now another crisis that is imminent. Harry's original plan accounted for Gale being on Terminus to solve the issue of the first crisis, but since she wasn't there, they're now in a situation where they've veered off the plan and are now in what looks like a divergent timeline. And the ramifications of Gale's absence is that there's now a string of crises that never seem to end. We then switch to Brother Day, healing from his assassin.
So that was a little complicated when I first heard that part. So essentially, Harry Seldon was aware of, I think, like a handful of crises that were supposed to impact the world or the galaxy, impact mankind, and cause this great dark period. However, he felt like he could mitigate it if Gale would found the foundation for him 138 years ago. However, because Raish saved her, put her in a cryopod, and she slept and ended up going back to Synax, and Raish got murked instead, it ruined Harry's plan. However, through that, psychohistory showed him a path forward. However, because of Gale not being the leader of the first foundation and being alive with this new plan, one, it can lead to a better outcome, but two, it's a much more difficult road with a lot more almost endless number of crises ahead of them. Thanks, Raish. Thank you, Father, kids. Thanks, Dad.
Assassination attempt without anesthesia, because at this point, he doesn't know who to trust. He is deeply disturbed by the attempt on his life and is so paranoid that he even accuses Brother Dawn of orchestrating the assassination attempt. It's not initially clear how much Brother Day thinks that might be true, as he asks Dawn to help him up from his healing bath, and they both return to the scene of the crime in Cleon's bedchambers. Brother Day begins asking his security team questions about whether someone helped the assassin gain access to his bedchambers, and to let them know he means business, he has one of his guards executed on the spot just for hesitating. As the guards leave the room, Day and Dawn begin a discussion about how Day was absolutely afraid to die. Dawn brushes it off that Day's fear is a result of their altered genome. Now, this is very interesting, as this is a completely different Cleon than the one who first discovered that their genomes were altered. This Cleon seems to have an utter fear of his mortality and replacement, as he says, more than once, that he doesn't want them to just unthaw another clone to replace him if he died. The discussion then changes to a debate about whether Brother Day should have children, and
in just the last 7 days, 8,368 men have clicked the link on one of our ads that you've probably...
What? Dawn tries to talk some sense into him about how children would replace them and would end the Cleonic Empire as we know it. This is very surprising, as the whole point of the Empire is to ensure the Cleonic dynasty, and a marriage, along with any offspring, would likely bring a challenge to the status quo and could risk the continuation of a Cleon clone ruling. They talk a bit more and embrace, and then Day breaks the news that he's going to submit Dawn and Dusk to a neural audit and view their memories. This is because Day suspects that Dawn and Dusk are both threatened by Day's impending marriage, as they should be, and Brother Day is clearly paranoid. And still, this development is shocking. The Cleons are at odds with one another. I mean, we saw hints of this with their predecessors last season, but this is something completely different, as it feels like they are not in unison the same way as their predecessors were. Could Dusk or Dawn have something to do with the attempt on Day's life? Maybe. We then switch to Demerzel sitting in front of a mirror performing repairs on her sliced head. She seems a lot better than when we last saw her. Cleon walks in to check on her, and she assures that she's fine since her consciousness is actually decentralized, so this is just a shell. Cleon asks if...
Now, man, that line there, I feel, is going to be very important. And it feels like another one of those seeds that David Goyer is planting to develop later. But he mentioned how Demerzel is decentralized. And I think that this is a result of when she was imprisoned, right? She was imprisoned for hundreds, thousands of years, whatever. And her consciousness was stuck in her body. I think that she developed a way to decentralize her consciousness so she could never be stuck in her body again. However, now it sounds like Demerzel is basically Skynet, right? She's in the net. She's in the web. She's not one machine. She's a bunch of machines. So I feel like that they planted that seed for us now. And I still think that this is something that could come up in season 3. As we revisit Demerzel, who's a much different Demerzel. Like, I don't want to spoil what happens in season 3. I am going through some of it now. But she continues on this trajectory of growth, and we're going to see something different with her. So I like how they start to plant these seeds here. Not only did she decentralize based off of her experiences being trapped, just think about how she must have evolved by the time we've seen her in season 3. What other precautions or protections has she put in place for herself based off of her experiences since that time? Let's get into it.
What they were doing was indecent, with Demerzel brushing it off and saying that it's not if it's given freely. This is a very brief moment, but a very, very interesting one, as this Cleon is going to Demerzel for reassurance in his decisions, almost as if he were checking for her approval. She then asks Cleon for some privacy as she finishes repairs on the missing half of her head. We then switch to a beautiful shot of space and a cool-looking spaceship. On the ship, we see 2 women, one being Queen Sareth, talking about how the rings surrounding the planet are beautiful, and they start comparing them with the frills around the neck of a lizard and how a lizard will use them for intimidation. Sareth is a little bit more glass half empty on this and mentions that lizards usually show their frills when they're afraid. We then switch to Brother Day and Brother Dusk debating the fact that Brother Day was sleeping with Demerzel. Brother Dusk seems really bothered by the news, but Brother Day actually tells us that Demerzel was actually the one who initiated. He also mentions how he was lucky she was there since his protective aura failed him when the assassins tried to take him out. He then mentions how he thinks someone tampered with it, and Dusk advises him to open an investigation. But I couldn't help but notice the look on Dusk's face when discussing this. Dusk has always seemed a bit harder to read than the others, but the blank expression on his face when discussing the attempt on Brother Day's life is very sus. They then begin discussing Brother Day's engagement to Queen Sareth. Dusk mentions how she brought
So we're starting to see the fractures between Dawn, Day, and Dusk, and I really like how they continued that storyline from season 1 into season 2, because it is going to be something we touch on when we get to season 3.
Such a large amount of people with her, and it could have been an opportunity to attempt the assassination herself. But in the same breath, he mentions how it would be better for her if she waited until after the marriage to do it. They continue talking, with Brother Day still expressing concern about trying to maintain the Cleonic dynasty the way that they have, and Dawn and Dusk seem to be at odds with each other over Brother Day's thinking and decisions. We then switch back to Gale and Salvor thinking about a way to escape the planet and fix Salvor's ship. They come up with a plan to swim down to Salvor's ship, which crash landed underwater. They come up with a strategy, with Gale offering to share oxygen with Salvor once they're on the ship. We get a pretty tense sequence of underwater events that ultimately ends in their success at fixing Salvor's ship and getting it to raise to the surface. They celebrate their success and begin talking about how weird things are, and Gale also reminds her that Salvor's existence is an absolute shock to her, and a development that she didn't get a chance to prepare for. They talk a bit more, and they actually bond, at least a little bit, as mother and daughter, and also as the last Synaxians. We then switch back to Trantor and into the royal throne room of Empire. Cleon the 17th welcomes his guest, Queen Sareth I. They exchange pleasantries and gifts. Sareth receives her gift, and I can't help but notice how sassy she gets with Empire. Her gift is a brass statue of Trantor and the rings she was criticizing earlier around them. She also criticizes that the Empire is surely larger than Trantor, and gets a little cheeky with Cleon in front of a large audience. I can't help but feel the audacity of her statement. She's saying this in front of other people? Like, my man Cleon has killed for a hell of a lot less, so my heart stopped when Sarah started popping off. This whole moment is funny, but scary, but funny, and gets interrupted when Demerzel comes telling Cleon that she needs to speak with him about an urgent matter, and it can't be said in front of the guests. We then switch to Demerzel debriefing Cleon on the fact that they were able to find the body of Commander Dorwin floating in space, possessing Imperial nanites. Dorwin, as we know, was sent to the Outer Reach by Cleon the 14th to investigate the comms buoy that went dark on Terminus. We know what happened on Terminus and how the Foundationers were at war, solved the war, aka the First Crisis, and faked the Mega Flare to be able to continue work on the Foundation without the attention of the Empire. We find out that Dorwin left a message in a neural implant for the Empire that they were able to retrieve and play back. This rocks Empire as they try to understand the gravity of the oversight of their predecessors. Demerzel tells them that there was no Mega Flare, and also talks about how there's a galactic alliance on the edges of space that we're previously unaware of. It doesn't take long for Brother Day to realize that this is the result of the Foundation created by Harry Seldon. Brother Dusk advises that they crush them immediately. Demerzel suggests that they instead observe just how far their influence extends. Brother Day agrees, but something interesting is the rumors that the Foundation has wizards that can fly and all this stuff, and that's a little bit surprising. Brother Dusk tells Day that he needs to get his house in order. We then switch back to Harry Seldon, the one that's trapped in the Prime Radiant, when he realizes that the person he's speaking to is the Prime Radiant. Harry asks the Prime Radiant what is its goal, and the Prime Radiant answers that she has a vested interest in humanity's destiny. But Harry's bothered that not in its survival, so it's not the same thing. The Prime Radiant then speaks with Harry, explaining that she wants to help him escape his prison. Harry comes to the realization that he can escape by changing his way of thinking from 4D to 2D. The Radiant wishes him luck and tells him that she will explain more and continue this conversation if he can meet her/it on Una's world. He takes the words of encouragement and proceeds to walk out of the door that appeared in front of him. We then switch back to Gale and Salvor, who are both in a bit of a situation and are...
So that whole conversation with Kali has been something that stuck with me for a while, because we later learned that Kali is actually, at least it seems like, a manifestation of the Prime Radiant itself, as if it was a consciousness. And the Prime Radiant Kali then becomes an additional player in all of this, because we start to wonder, all right, did Kali make this copy of Harry Seldon? Was there, I mean, there was always a plan for a second foundation, right? Or did Kali create a copy of Harry and implant this idea of a second foundation, which is why the first Harry had no idea about it? Maybe his thought was always to bring Gale to Terminus, create foundation, stop the 2 or 3 crises that he knew that he could lead she could lead them through, with his consciousness being there to back her up. Maybe that was his plan. So now it feels like Kali is an additional player who is the being itself that set us on this altered trajectory path outside of Harry's plan. It gets dense, but it gets good.
Stuck, unable to get the ship to operate. Salvor urges Gale to free Harry from the Prime Radiant to help them figure out what's wrong with the ship. But it looks like he's able to free himself and appears on the ship. And it's time Harry and Gale had a reckoning. And end credits. Wow. What a wonderful return to this show. Yo, I gotta admit that I was late to get on board with Foundation, but I am so.
But yeah, there we go. That is Foundation Season 2, Episode 1. It does so much to plant the seeds. It does so much to set us on the path forward to greatness. It plants so many small things, like we already revisited. We started to notice the cracks in the Cleonic dynasty, the 3 dawn, day, and dusk drifting in different directions, wants, desires, personalities, due to some genetic drifting. We've seen Harry Seldon's plan go off course, and some lack of clarity as to who's the instigator of it. We see this mother and daughter situation that couldn't possibly make sense, but we love it anyway, and it turns into heartache. We meet these mind readers, these matter movers, these mentalics of Ignis, and more later in the season. I am really curious as to what else we're going to discover as we rewatch this. So if you're watching this on a replay and if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, please do me a favor, please hit that like button, please. I'm telling you, this is going to help not only for you to see my video on your homepage the next time we do episode 2, but it's going to help my channel to grow even in 2025, because these are the things that YouTube still cares about. Please hit that like button, and if you're new here and you want to catch us every week as we break down Foundation Season 3, make sure you subscribe. Maybe even join our memberships, where you're going to get some more behind the scenes footage and videos from me every week leading up to that release. Anyway, before I let you guys go, psych, we're going to go into episode 2. Yes, I want to go into Season 2, Episode 2. I almost was about to put on Season 3, right? Like I should just put on Season 3, let Apple see what they think. Just like a little 2-minute preview, right? Just like see how it opens.
But
no, let's go into Foundation Season 2, Episode 2, because it actually does so many cool things as far as furthering what they've established in the first episode, but further building, because we're still getting used to the fact that this show is kind of anthological. Is that a word? In that it takes place over the course of hundreds of years, and the only recurring characters are Cleon, Harry, and Gale. Everybody else gets replaced or recast, or there's a new supporting cast every season. So we're still rocking and getting used to that concept. But as Season 2 is familiarizing us with the concept, it's graciously introducing us to the new supporting cast, which is nothing sort of excellent, beginning with Queen Seraph.
Future is effed show foundation. I can't wait. But first, do me a favor. If you're where last week left off, and we're about to see Harry Selvin go to war with Gale for locking him up in the Prime Radiant. Now, we saw how bad that place was on Harry's psyche at the beginning of last week's episode, and now he's face to face with the person who did it to him. Gale is shooketh, with Salvor Hardin just looking like a referee trying to make sure they keep it clean. Harry tells Gale that he was conscious for the entire 138 years that have passed since season 1. Gale tells Harry that she didn't know, and she just learned what happened to Raish when she did it to him. So, you know, that's on Harry, I guess, kind of, right? And Harry's like, yo, Raish knew everything. Salvor interrupts them and reminds them, oh, yeah, by the way, the world is ending. And the ocean starts knocking around their spaceship that is unable to fly at the moment. Gale and Harry continue their conversation and talk about how Harry's great plan has gone off course. And Gale plays innocent as if she doesn't know why. Harry reminds her and me that there was supposed to be a second foundation. And finally, Salvor speaks up when she overhears them talking about a second foundation. Harry is surprised to hear that the Plan Wrecker has a daughter. And Harry...
So I love that everybody is surprised by the concept of a second foundation. Now, this is not something that's proven yet, but I'm going to put it out there now. This is my theory. Kali created Harry White. Kali planted the idea of the second foundation in him for its own goals. I don't think Harry ever intended for a second foundation. And I think that this is all some crazy side quest that they've been put on by the Prime Radiant. But that's just my theory for right now. We know that Kali does eventually make Harry go to that other planet. She gives him a human body. She gives him stakes in the game to be susceptible to the mind control of the Mentalics. In order for him to create the second foundation, it almost feels like creation of the second foundation is more of a benefit to Kali than anything else, or at least part of the machinations of Kali more than anything else. So if the Prime Radiant is in itself conscious and has its own plan, what is its plan? And which Harry should we trust?
Showing all sorts of long-term effects of being in isolation right now because my guy is going off. Salvor tries to remind Harry that they met on Terminus when Harry stepped out of the vault. And something interesting happens in this moment when Harry kind of matrix glitches right here, because for a hot second it seemed like Harry remembered being on Terminus by saying, yes, I was on Terminus. And then he quickly changes and says, no, that was the other one. And then he talks about how the two Harrys don't know each other's minds. Now
that moment is wild to me still. They made sure that it happened. They made sure that we saw it. I'm hoping we get more follow through on this in season 3. But that little glitch moment where he kind of remembered what happened with Terminus and meeting Salvor and then saying that's the other Harry, that's a little bit more evidence to me that this Harry, maybe he wasn't conscious for 138 years. Maybe it was just what he thought it was, or what it was simulated by Kali. Maybe he was a new creation by Kali in that moment by the Prime Radiant that thought it was alive for 138 years. But it was really a backup of the Harry Seldon that's in the vault without that Harry knowing it was copied, because that Harry also has a copy of the Prime Radiant, right? It exists in superposition. It can exist in multiple places at the same, something like that. But yeah, I'm starting to theorize that Kali is definitely the one controlling things here, similar to how Demerzel is the one secretly controlling Empire. Oh, snap. This is really Kali versus Demerzel. Is this a continuation of the Robot Wars? Did the Robot Wars ever end? Or did they just evolve? Yo, I think we might be onto something right there. Because think about it, right? The robot wars were when robots were fighting against each other, humans were fighting against robots as a third party. It was a three-way war, but Demerzel was on one side of the war. Kali is a mathematical formula that seemingly has a consciousness, which could be from psychohistory itself, maybe a remnant of one of the machines, maybe something that Harry's wife introduced into the Prime Radiant. I have no idea, but it could be that Kali is fighting a war against Demerzel that's thousands of years in the making. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna clean that up. I'm gonna have to put that down and clean that up and make a little theory video for that one. Yeah.
This moment stood out a bit for me, and I can't help but wonder why this Harry thought he remembered being on Terminus for a while. Do you think that he could remember, or is he just suffering long-term effects of being in isolation for such a long period of time? Who knows? Maybe Harry's time inside the Prime Radiant could have had more of an impact on his consciousness than he knew, or we knew, or anything. Or it could still just be him misremembering. Either way, this moment really stood out for me. Harry talks about how Terminus will soon go to war with the Empire, and Salvor talks to him about how they could really use his help fixing the spaceship right now because, oh yeah, the world is ending. Harry vanishes, letting us know that, oh shit, he could do that now, and he fixes the spaceship's computers. Unfortunately, a bunch of coral reef grew on one of the stabilizers of the ship, and it has to be cleared manually. And it leads to a pretty tense moment with Salvor rushing outside the ship with a rope tied around her waist to try to clear the growth with her hands. She does it, and Gale takes off with Salvor dangling from said rope as they try their best to escape the world ending. They clear the danger and they fly into the sky, and then when Salvor gets back on the ship, they have a really tender mother-daughter reunion. Aw. We then switch to a planet Savannah, where we see a woman traveling across a desert riding on the back of a creature that I can only describe as a baby dragon with antlers. Like, seriously, this creature looks wild. It's like, what if the Gremlins had a second mutation where they turned into Gozer's demons? Anyway, they're making their way across the desert until she sees something that alarms her. We then switch to somebody's drunk uncle sleeping off a hangover in a tent when the woman from the desert comes in and wakes him up, the old-fashioned way. She then whips out a needle the size of a sword and then checks him right in the bottom of his foot. And yo, listen, I've been told there are like spots on the human body where your skin is like extra sensitive to pain. And the bottom of your foot has to be in like the top 3 spots. Like, I felt it when she did this to this dude. What did he do to deserve this? What also surprises me is that he just goes, "Curse you, brother." And at first I thought they were trying to tell us that they're siblings. And this is just, a term of endearment for his sister. But then I realized that they're members of some sort of religious group where everyone refers to each other as brother. We then switch to them walking up on another one of the group members, but it looks like he's been strung up in the middle of the desert where he was finished off and struck by lightning. Interestingly, as they examine the body of their group member, they say that this was a fairly gruesome message for the Foundation. And this is interesting because this is the first time we've seen someone that looks like a religious group from the Foundation. We learned that the crucified guy is named Cleric Reese, and the guy says that he was a good magician and that he knew him. I like how Foundation is picking up that line from last episode where guys from the Empire were discussing how there were rumors of magicians that can fly and do magic. And these are the guys that are recruiting planets for the Foundation. They discover a symbol of the local lightning deity and deduce that the locals may have done this as a warning, as they learn that you can't just come to someone's planet with your own religion and expect a warm welcome. They walk off with the guy warning the woman to keep her aura charged. We then switch to Trantor, where we see Demerzel and Cleon talking, while Cleon sits by that big painting wall, and he's at a section of the wall where there's a person named Empress Hanalao and Empress Hemedatech, who oversaw a galactic empire 4 times the size of the Cleonic Empire. And Day seems like an admirer.
So I love this painting wall because it has so much history, and it talks about life before the Cleonic Empire. And the only person who actually knows what life was like before is Demerzel. Cleon admires these 3, but Demerzel might have actually been around when they ruled. That's really interesting to me because, again, we just don't comprehend her perspective of things with so much knowledge.
Demerzel tells Day that Dusk and Dawn have passed the lie detector test, and there was no memory of them being involved in the assassination attempt on Day's life. But we know how easy it is for people's memories and how they can be altered in this universe. Day gives Demerzel a forehead kiss, and I can't help but notice how much she seems to appreciate the affection, at least until Day brings up his upcoming marriage. They then talk about how Demerzel has found someone to investigate the Foundation, but Day doesn't like it. Belrios. Apparently this Belrios guy disobeyed Day's orders, and Day goes on an emotional rant/pity party, and then realizes that Demerzel knew he would do this, and even asks how long she thought the outburst would last.
I love how Demerzel is just manipulating things right here. That little moment where she showed some affection for the forehead kiss was really all still part of her plan, going along with the assassination attempt to try to convince this brother Day not to get married. So the one thing that she was trying to preserve was the Cleonic dynasty, and him having these aspirations to end the Cleonic dynasty and have children and get married, all that stuff is really messing with her programming. So she's really doing everything that she can to try to discourage that idea from him all throughout the way, but still also setting up her plan just in case it doesn't go forward, including this with getting Belrios. Now, she knows that she can't directly harm Cleon. She can't. Well, she can and she can't. There's specific circumstances in which she can, and then there's and it's kind of unclear as to why she just doesn't do that with this brother Day and decant another one. But for whatever reason, she likes to play the long game here.
Day then agrees to let Demerzel reach out to Belrios. We then switch to the Empire, all 3 of them, eating dinner, and we find out that they're rehearsing how to appear as one person, and that Day's DNA was off by 3 centimorgans as they're debating whether to utilize Belrios to investigate the Foundation. Brother Day gets increasingly frustrated at the conversation, and he actually storms off, letting everyone know that this is motivation for him to get married, so he doesn't have to do these rehearsals with Dusk and Dawn anymore, and they don't have to worry about the lineage of the Cleonic Empire. And wow, this whole scene is quick, but so dang cool to watch. It's a well-acted scene, but also informative as we learn just how different each of the Cleons are from each other, and how close Day is to ending the Cleonic Empire as we know it. We then switch back to Gale and Salvor in space, and they're talking about how Gale prevented Harry from starting the second Foundation. Salvor has questions because the future of mankind is at risk because of Gale's reaction to the death of her lover. Yup, it's an Infinity War Star-Lord moment all over again, with our heroes grasping defeat in the jaws of victory. Harry then enters the chat as they're talking about how Harry doesn't tell people everything. And Harry points out that Gale knows how to read the Prime Radiant, and she's perfectly capable of figuring it out. Harry then explains to Salvor why there needed to be a second Foundation that knew the entire plan. But they had to be secret so that they could secretly help guide the first Foundation in order to help them avoid the first Foundation from becoming another empire. Gale then talks about how she could sense what the threat was when she last had one of her futuristic visions. Gale then mentions that she's felt stronger in her powers since she's met Salvor, and she marches off. Harry and I are confused, but Salvor explains that she has powers too, except her visions allow her to see Gale's past. Harry then has the idea for Gale to project her consciousness 150 years into the future into the body of her future self.
So I love how later in the show they kind of establish that Mentalics have this ability that is their baseline ability level. And when they're around each other, their powers augment. They level each other up, kind of like Blue Lanterns to Green Lanterns. It's just they're stronger together. So now that Salvor and Gale are around each other, Gale's powers are stronger.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
Better than Pornhub.
Gale begins to reconcile how that could even be possible. We then switch to the Cleons enjoying a meal with Queen Sarah, and Demerzel is there keeping a close watch. Brother Dawn and the Queen make some crass clone jokes along the way, making all the clones feel uncomfortable. And yo, I like how Queen Sarah is acting out here. I like her character and her just being her authentic self and not giving an F what others think. Even if it's offensive to them, I mean, I love it. It's totally insensitive, but I like how she goes out of her way to demean the Cleons. It's like she just doesn't like them, or she's angry with them, or she could have some beef with them that we don't know about. Anyway, she starts talking about how the Cleons could decant another clone if one of them is taken out at any given time, and the population would never even know it. Me and the Cleons are curious how she even knew about the assassination attempt, and she brushes it off by saying that she just heard rumors. They talk a bit more and switch to how having children and how it will give new assurances for the future with Brother Day as the father, when she says something that makes the whole room silent for a moment. And she says, with enough children, even a Zeppelin crash wouldn't disrupt the line. And Dusk ends the awkward silence by saying, we are very sorry for your losses. She then talks about how her siblings were trained to lead and how she wasn't, letting me know for sure that she sure as hell has motive to have beef with the Cleons. Now, she is Dominion. Brother Day tells her that he will support her, and she switches to low-key shade by switching her conversation to Brother Dawn and pointing out how her marriage to Day will cost him a kingdom. She keeps pushing it and even goes as far as to kind of sort of caress his hand a little and talks about how his very reason for existence would be erased. Now, this is beyond sus, and I have a theory here that she's doing this on purpose. I think that she's trying to further the wedge between the brothers, and she has a different goal in mind. She brought up how they can always decant another Cleon. I think Sareth is playing at a longer game, and it feels like revenge is on her mind about this Zeppelin crash. Hold on to this because, yeah. Sareth then asks Dave if she can actually see the clones in their tanks that are kept as backups, and she wants to see them with her own eyes. Brother Dave seems intrigued by her request and
she got the
agrees
Marge
to escort
Simpson.
her to the Principium himself. This whole back and forth pretty much ends the dinner scene for everyone, with Sareth's assistant excusing herself right after Sareth and Day leave. We then switch to the Principium with Brother Day showing Sareth Cleon the First. We then go a bit further into the chamber where we see what looks like some tiny embryo Cleons, and interestingly there are 4 of them and more. Cleon shows Sareth the clone body that they would have used to replace him if he had died in the assassination attempt, with Sareth suddenly quoting a poem as she enters the room. Rejoice, his shame remains unknown, that he had almost sat a throne. She then explains that this is a poem that has been banned by the Empire, and then she asked whether the Demerzels are kept separate, stating that she figures that's why Demerzel always stays the same age. And we go back to what I was saying earlier with Sareth seeming to have an ulterior motive. Sareth is not so subtly probing Cleon here for information, about the workings of the Cleonic Empire and seems to be trying to find weaknesses that she can exploit. When Brother Day mentions something that could come back to haunt him later, Day mentions how his memories are transmitted in real time to the backup clone, and that they edit out the moment of his death to spare him the trauma. The way that Sareth is being so nosy about how things work, I have a strong feeling that she caught on to that detail, and this will come back in the future. Sareth continues to antagonize Brother Day as she's been doing all day, and takes a few more jabs at how the succession works with the clones replacing the active Cleon. Brother Day keeps his cool and keeps bringing up how Sareth and Day's children would end this process and begin something new. He even brings up how he secretly tested her DNA to confirm that their children wouldn't have any abnormalities due to him being a clone. They then engage in a little foreplay, with Brother Day seemingly being very attracted to Sareth, but in the same breath, he talks about how they would reproduce artificially rather than through traditional means. Sareth responds with reminding Day that once children are born, then assassins could make another attempt on his life, and continues to antagonize Day by mentioning his weaknesses. She also mentions that she's heard rumors that the genetic lineage had been tampered with in the past, and is likely the motivation for him looking into trying something new with marriage. Did I mention that Sareth is turning into my favorite character in this show? The sophisticated ignorance that this woman is able to spout and just irritate the hell out of Cleon because she knows that she can is everything for me right now. Yeah, I got my eye on this one. Anyway, we then switch to that woman in the red dress from
I follow
earlier,
her on Instagram,
seemingly making her way to some sort of town market. We see that there's a spaceship in the sky, seemingly hiding in plain sight in the clouds as she continues making her way through the area. She continues walking until she places something on a table that creates some sort of hologram of the vault, and she talks about how there's a show tonight and that it seems like that she's going to be hosting it. When some cowboy-looking guy walks over and scares off the crowd and threatens her that she needs to leave. She then shares her name as she introduces herself as Novice Cleric Brother Constant of the Foundation. As she does this, a quick blink and you miss a detail is how one of the guys with the cowboy touches his eye and lets us know that he's not 100% flesh and blood, with at least his eye being cybernetic. They get into a back and forth with the cowboys wanting the woman in the red to stop what she's doing. Brother Constant then activates a personal aura and starts running through town claiming it as a spirit shield, implying it's provided by her faith. As they begin to overcrowd her and her aura, Brother Cleric comes floating down from the sky, somehow causing what must be an eclipse in the middle of the day. The cowboys try to start a go home go home heretic chant, but somehow Brother Cleric was able to make the guy fly in the sky and drop him into a nearby pool of water. I think this is the same guy we saw with the cybernetic eye, so he may have been in on the whole con, and yes, this is a con with the people in red using technology to convince the locals that they have magical powers. And they use this sequence of events as a means to recruit people to join up with the Foundation. Brother Cleric mentions how he witnessed the vault open when he was a child, and Harry Seldon came out and spoke to the Foundation, and hold up, Cleric is over 138 years old? Before we get those answers, Cleric and Constant leave when they get a notification on one of their comm systems. They return to their ship and find out that the vault has opened and they need to return to Terminus. Cleric mentions to Constant how the return of Harry Seldon is both a good thing and a bad thing, as it means that they're on the verge of experiencing the second crisis. After a bit more chat, they start making their way back to Terminus. We then switch back to the spaceship with the other Harry Seldon that's been with Gale and Sauber in space. He seems a bit more calm now, and that's good. They're still talking about how Gale needs to send her consciousness into the future to get more information about the second crisis so that they can prepare. Gale agrees, but realizes that she needs to drown in order to actually utilize her powers. So she drains all of the oxygen in the room, sits on a table, and concentrates. After a few dramatic moments, Gale's consciousness is transported into her future self, and we know this because she's now in a new place where the world is ending, again, And oh, she has a new hairstyle. We see a place that looks like the future that John Connor has been trying to prevent in the Terminator movies, with Gale getting hunted by her very own T-1000 wearing a Dragon Ball Z power level scouter. What's interesting is he's able to easily overpower and catch Gale, and then it seems he's able to read Gale's mind, and he realizes that the Gale that he's interacting with is from the past. He says a few ominous things when Salvor interrupts by waking Gale up in the past, where we see that she has strangle marks on her neck that she received as a keepsake from the Terminator in the future. Gale tells us that the guy...
So I like this little moment here because we learn that Gale isn't actually getting locally, physically strangled by the Mule. It's in fact her powers manifesting those physical injuries on her because of her mind traveling. It's like it's doing damage to her local self because of the mental projection that it's experiencing. But it's also indicative that this is her power that's in this moment right now. So anything that, even though like she's interacting with the Mule and the Mule is picking her up and yoking her up and talking to her and able to read her mind, the physical damage that happens to her local body is actually a manifestation of Gale's power as opposed to the Mule's power traveling from the future into the past. This is her power doing it to herself because it's like trauma. It's like it's hurting itself. But yeah, I wanted to plant that seed because it is going to be something that I visit later on as we get further into season 2, when we talk about Gale's power level.
The future is named the Mule, and he's the source of the coming darkness. They realize he's a telepath, with Gale telling them that he was trying to read her mind to find the location of the second foundation. They realize that the second foundation must exist in the future, and they ask Gale to try to remember where it was located in the future. Gale tells them it's the planet Ignis. What happens next is interesting with Salvor and then Gale feeling like the planet is calling to them, and they both agree that it feels right. We then switch to Clark and Constant landing on Terminus, the home of the first foundation. Constant has a nice reunion with her brother who is waiting for her. Clark meets up with the warden who is waiting for him with open arms. We then switch to a conference room where they begin discussing the vault and how Polly Verisov, the one that we were calling the High Cleric, that's his real name, Polly, who witnessed the vault opening the first time, to be there when Harry returns. The cleric is not super thrilled with how they don't want his involvement in speaking with Harry when he emerges from the vault. They debate for a bit, but it ends with the High Cleric being assigned to the crowd control rather than getting an opportunity to be on the front lines and possibly speak with Harry for himself. We then switch to the Warden Yeager and the residents of the Foundation approaching the vault as the door seemingly opens. Warden Yeager tries to brown-nose his way into getting a response from Harry Seldon, but instead of Harry coming out to talk to him, he gets left on scene and tries to BS his way inside the vault instead. This was not the correct answer, as when the warden announces he's going to enter the vault, he instead gets lifted into the air, used like a ragdoll when he starts blurting out to get Harbor Mallow. And then he bursts into flame and dies on the spot. Like, we don't get to catch our breath at all, because we then switch back to Salvor's spaceship, with Salvor waking up from her sleep to notice that Gale isn't in bed. She eventually finds Gale sitting on the bridge of the ship, where she tells Salvor that she didn't tell Salvor and Harry the whole story earlier when she had her vision of the future. As she begins retelling the story, she admits to Salvor that she saw Salvor also in the future, lying next to Gale, but she had been taken out, freaking Gale all the way out that her daughter is no longer alive. End credits. And wow. Okay, Foundation, I see you moving the narrative a bit here. Things are moving a little slowly, but I see all the plot points that are being set up in this episode that we'll likely get to explore in the future.
But yeah, there we go. That's the second episode. So this episode does a lot, right? We got the introductions to Queen Seraph and Handmaiden Rue. We understand that she has information coming in from the inner workings of Empire that's informing her of some of the most intimate things that are happening, including the assassination attempt on Brother Day. And she has a bone to pick with them. We know that this is because that her family was a part of that bombing, was a part of a huge bombing and terroristic event that Cleon orchestrated himself. So there's so much there, and the way that they introduce these catfights of conversations in this season. I forget what the character type is. It's what Seraph is. She's sassy, she's feline like, she's catty, she's an instigator. I forget what that character type is called, but she is her. She starts instigating beef between the Cleon. She's driving a wedge, widening the divide between the three of them even more, and even going more so into her investigation as to the ultimate cause of her family's demise, all while Cleon is still trying to figure out who was the true orchestrator of his assassination attempt. There's so many stories of stories of stories, and so many plots and so many motives all colliding with these overarching characters. It's just so good that when they finally do play out, when we do get to like episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10, it's all downhill on a roller coaster. It's all amazing television. And the setup isn't even as slow or nuanced. Like, there's little moments that I think are going to pay off later, but you get plenty of satisfaction along the way. Anyway, I did want to go over the season 3 trailer, but I think I kind of ate up almost all of my time for this live stream today. So let me see. I can do some Q&A. I did want to show you all this where to get this Stay Out of My Mind Foundation season t-shirt. Foundation family, we finally got some merch for ourselves. I've been going to be putting together more merch all throughout the season, but I started by making myself my own little Foundation t-shirts. I wanted to upgrade my t-shirt game. This one in royal Cleonic blue is only available for a limited time. It's up on my store now. You should see some links in the description. It's also going to be tagged as part of this video. Get this limited edition Cleonic blue t-shirt between now and when the season drops, and then afterwards you can come to the Foundation store, get some of these other standard edition t-shirts in the colors that are available. In addition to that, I just made some other stuff, Save Salvo, Stop the Mule, just have a nice little cutie. And I also wanted to make it an orange, that nice, bright, bold orange, because I feel like that's a reflection of what Salvor was in season 2. She was a big, bold, bright person. And of course, the cup that I mentioned earlier, the mug, counting prime numbers to stay sane. It does come in 2 varieties and flavors. I have one with the prime numbers on the mug. I have one without the prime numbers. These are all up on the store. Just wanted to let you guys know this merch is available, and more merch to come as we lead into and go throughout season 3 of Foundation. Join the Foundation. Get in on these shirts. Look, I wear my shirt every time I watch the show. I'm about to watch season 3 now. Some more. But yeah, check it out. But actually, no. You know what I am really going to do? I'm going to watch 28 Days Later. And then I'm going to watch 28 Weeks Later. Because tomorrow, I am watching 28 Years Later. And my members, you guys know, you guys get the out of theater reaction before everyone else. I'm going to probably even do a quick little live stream reaction for my members right after I get out the theater. So I'll do my out of theater reaction, and then as I'm walking to the train, maybe I'll do a little Q&A with you guys to talk about the movie. Just members only live stream. So that'll be late. My screening tomorrow, I think, is at 7, so it's probably going to be around 9, between 9 and 10 p.m. Eastern. So just keep an eye out for a random live stream to happen with me between 9 and 10, only on YouTube. This one's only going to be on YouTube. I won't be streaming it across Twitter and Rumble next time. This one's only going to be on YouTube. But yeah, members, check it out. Patreons, I'll try to figure out how to get y'all in there as well. But that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you all think about season 2, episodes 1 and 2 of Foundation. And let me know what you all are excited to see in season 3. Are you all excited to see the new set of Cleons? Because I don't think y'all ready. I don't think y'all really understood. I think some of y'all might have got a glance at it. And maybe there's some people out there on Reddit coming up with theories because the screeners are out there, so they have a feeling that the show might go in specific directions. Maybe those theories are out there, but let me know what you all are excited to see in season 3 and what you think might actually happen. Anyway, we'll go over the season 3 trailer in the next live stream. I'll try to do that one on this Thursday, regular scheduled time. Let's get back to it. That's all I have for this one. Again, if you're new here to TMB, The Correct Opinion, do me a favor. Please, 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 please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. It helps me. It helps you. It helps everyone in 2025 to make this channel grow and make sure that I show up on your homepage as we go through season 3. You're not going to want to miss these breakdowns. Otherwise, I'm going to have to check you all later. Peace, y'all. Appreciate you, Marquisha. Shout out to my Patreon members and my YouTube channel members. I appreciate you, Marquisha. Show off them emojis. You go ahead and show them off, girl.